Hello guys, I hope all are doing really well and safe during this pandemic. So please stay safe. Myself Manikandan. So from now on, I will also be taking biology classes for you. I'm really happy for that. So without further ado, let's get into the lesson. So you all know your first chapter from zoology is reproduction in organisms. So that's what we are going to see today. So let me give you an outline of the chapter. This chapter consists modes of reproduction, asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction. And what you will be learning from this chapter is that you will be learning modes of asexual reproduction in different organisms and their significance. And you will also be understanding their different modes of sexual reproduction, and you will also be able to realize what is their significance and advantage of sexual reproduction and its role in evolution. But anyways, from this tutorial you will be only learning asexual reproduction from this tutorial, and this tutorial again might be split into two if the duration of the video is very long. So I hope you guys will enjoy this lesson. At the same time, please pay attention what I'm teaching and talking. And I have tried my best to give a lot of examples so that it will be easy for you guys to understand. Now let's get into the. So what is reproduction in organisms? So I have given a simple definition here. It is a biological process by which an organism produces its offspring is called reproduction. It is a biological process by which an organism produces its offspring or young one is called reproduction. So let me put it in a very simple way. It is a process where a parent, it can be a single parent or two parent, reproduce an young one is known as reproduction. It's very simple, right? As simple as that. Now let's see why reproduction is important and why it has been told reproduction is very important process and fundamental features in all the living organisms that lives in the entire planet. So you can also ask this question, and you might even wonder why all the organism needs to reproduce. They To survive, they don't need to reproduce, right? They can survive without even reproducing. But why it has been told that it is a very important and fundamental feature in all the organisms. Let me give you a small introduction why reproduction is very important first. So this is the forest. Let's consider or assume this is a forest. I just want to give you an example. That's why I'm doing this. This plus stands for rabbits. Let's consider you have three rabbits and you also have foxes, or let's consider this as lions. Okay, so now you know these lions are predators. L stands for lions and plus stands for rabbits. Let's assume this is a forest. Okay, and this forest has only three numbers. I mean the total population of rabbit in the forest is only three. Let's assume in such way. And the total number of lions here are two. They are predators, right? So let's think that all these rabbits know they have decided together that they don't want to reproduce because it's not going to affect its survivability by anyways. So all of them together have decided not to do it. So let me give you another example. Let me talk about life cycle. As soon as when an young one born right from the parent, they grow, mature, and reproduce, and grow old and die. That is the process, right? It just keeps on repeated. So it's a repeated process. Likewise, these rabbits also have reached the reproducing stage, which means all of them have matured. Which means all of them have matured, but still they refuse to do this reproduction. Now, what do you think will happen? So, as I told you earlier, life cycle will continues. These that let's assume these two died due to aging process, like as the life cycle progressed. And this one rabbit, right? This one rabbit here was actually died due to predation, because lions go and predate upon the lower animals, right? These rabbits are lower animal, so this lion goes and eat this rabbit. Now what happens, I told you this forest only had three rabbits, and all these three rabbits have died due to aging process as well as by predation. Now there are no rabbits to continue its species. There are no rabbits to continue its species. Let me write it here. So now you understand, you must have guessed it, right? Let me tell you what is species, guys. Species are a group of individuals that looks similar to each other. For example, we humans are a kind of species because physiologically, morphologically, we all look similar to each other. And dogs are a kind of species, lions are a kind of species. So what happened here, because they refused to do reproduction, now there are no rabbits to continue the species. So now you must have guessed why reproduction is very important, right? Because reproduction helps in the continuation of species. You have an idea about now what is continuation of species, I guess. So that is why it is also known as a fundamental features in all the organisms, and it helps in the continuation of the species. And it is also a repeated process. For example, if you take this human life cycle from germ cells, I believe that you guys know what is germ cell, right? One cell from mother which carries genetic information, and one cell from father which carries half of the genetic information. When they fuse together, they form a zygote which will contain 46 chromosomes, and all of them together will undergo mitotic division. I believe you must have studied in your lower classes about this. So fertilization takes place, and baby borns, and baby again grows a child, and it reaches matures, and again they reproduce, grow old, die. It is a repeated process. So this repeated process also helps in the introduction of variations. Let me tell you what is variation. So I have given a picture of puppies. So all these puppies are from single parent. I meant to say that all of them from one father and one mother. So if you look at all of these puppies, they all have different characteristics and genetic different characteristics, though they all are same species. But if you compare them with its parents, for example, if you compare this black puppy with its mother, it will not exactly look like its mother. It will also have its father characteristics. So these changes, what we call these genetic variations, also what we call is variations. You can see a lot of changes and differences because it will not look exactly like its parent. It will contain both mixed characteristic from father and mother. So this is what we call variations. And these variations again helps in the adaptation of an organism, and finally leads into evolution of new species. For example, if you look at this picture, it is believed that we humans are evolved from apes, chimpanzees and orangutans. So it took millions of years for us to evolve as homo sapiens, right? So during this millions of years, the species had to face, or the species had to face a lot of challenges from external environment as well as from the body, from inside the body. So to make sure that it lives and suit itself to live in such condition, it has to adapt itself. It has to suit itself to that particular condition. So that is what we call adaptation. And finally this adaptation helps in the evolution of new species, because now it has adapted to extreme conditions, so that it can pass on to this information to the next generation, where it will again grow better and will have better information that leads into better new species. So this is how reproduction plays a significant role in continuation of species, and that introduce variation. Finally this variation helps in the adaptation and evolution of organisms. Now we have seen what is reproduction and what is the importance of reproduction. Let's see what is the modes of reproduction in the next slide. Modes of reproduction. Let's see the modes of reproduction. Generally, in all the organisms, you generally have two modes of reproduction. One is asexual reproduction and another one is sexual reproduction. Let's talk about asexual reproduction. Asexual means it is single, from a single parent without any gametes involvement. Without any gametes involvement, you get an offspring or young one, and that will look identically similar to its parent. What do I mean from this? Let's take it. There was a single parent and gametes. Do you guys? I believe that you guys know what is gametes, right? Gametes are reproducing cells from both parents. Generally, these gametes will be there in sexually reproducing organisms, not from the asexually reproducing organisms. So these gametes will carry genetic information and fuse together and form an individual. But from here, asexual reproduction, you don't need gametes to produce an offspring. From a single parent, you get an offspring or young one, and that will look exactly like its parent. And the genetic information also will look exactly like its parent. And again, this asexual reproduction might also happen amitotically as well as mitotically, right? So let me tell you what is amitotic. Amitotic, you must have studied in lower classes what is mitosis, meiosis, and amitosis. But let me tell you what is amitotic. Amitotic means it is a simple division of nucleus without the appearance of spindle formation as well as the chromosome. But in mitotic, you must have studied more, like mitotic has different phases, like interphase and mitosis. Again, they will be classified into different phases that I will be talking about in next slide. But here, this mitotic cells, also known as body cells or somatic cells. So most of the asexual reproduction always takes place from the body cells. Most of the asexual reproduction of reproducing organisms, and based on this, hence this can also be called somatogenic as well as blastogenic. You know what is somatogenic? Somato means which is body cells. From the body cells, an individual or new offspring will be produced. Blastogenic means lymphocytes, right? The white blood cells will continuously aggregate at one particular point. This will take place in mostly in budding. You will be knowing it in the next slides. So blastogenic means lymphocytes, the white blood cell that continuously aggregate in one place and then undergoes a mitotic division to produce an individual. So that is what blastogenic. And the young one produced from this also always identical to each other. Okay, now we have seen what is asexual reproduction, right? Now let's see what is sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction involves two parents, I mean one father and one mother will also have gametes, two types of gametes, which is ovum and sperm. Finally, they produce an young one by undergoing different process such as mitosis, and this mitosis continuously helps in the formation of different parts of a body in different individual organisms, which we will be talking about later in the next tutorial. So now you know what is the difference between asexual and sexual reproduction. In simple, asexual means from a single parent without any involvement of gametes you get an individual. Again, this reproduction can happen amitotically, which means a simple nuclear division where one cell becomes two cells. Whereas in the mitosis, where it has different phases where genetic information will get copied, and a lot of process takes place in mitotic. So I also told you based on the process, it is also known as somatogenic and plastogenic. And sexual reproduction, I also told you about sexual reproduction. Now, one thing is very important from both of this asexual or sexual reproduction. It doesn't matter whether it is asexual or sexual reproduction. In all this reproduction process, synthesis of RNA and proteins and duplication of DNA. I believe that you guys know what is DNA, right? DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, which carries genetic information, and it also helps in the formation of many things inside the cell and outside the Cell 2. And cell division takes place. Finally, an organism grows and forms new reproductive units, finally fertilized to form a new individuals. So all this process takes place irrespective of any modes of reproduction. Now we have seen all about modes of reproduction and what the process that takes place in reproduction. Just an overview. Let's see more about asexual reproduction. Okay, so from your book, they have given few examples for asexual reproduction. First one is Protista. Protista are unicellular prokaryotes that predominantly that lives in aquatic environment. If you look at here, they're very beautiful organisms, but they are very microscopic, which means you need higher magnification to look them, to observe them, as well as it is very beautiful organism because it's very complex process to identify them. Anyways, that's not into your topic. And you have bacteria. I have given an example of E. coli. This is how a bacteria looks like. And also archaea. This archaea is also looks similar to bacteria, but it is not actually a bacteria. Before, it was believed that it actually falls into bacteria because they have similar appearance. But when they found out that genetic material is completely different from each other, then they have classified them into archaea. And one important feature about this archaea is that they can able to live in very extreme condition. That is why we call them extremophils. Extremophils. This is enough for you to know about the species. I'm telling all this thing so that you guys know about, you guys will able to remember the species names. The groups that they have given it for example in your asexual reproduction. And finally, multicellular. So I have given starfish because it undergoes asexual reproduction. So why do you think all these groups have come under asexual reproduction? Because their level of organization is very simple. If you look at this protist, this is an unicellular protein. It is it's a single cell. In the single cell itself, all the process takes place. For example, digestion of food and eliminating unnecessary particles and moving from one place to another place and reproducing. All this process takes place inside one cell. Unlike multicellular, like humans, we have different complex systems to function a lot of process. For example, to digest our food we have digestive system, and to excrete waste we have excretory system, to supply blood we have circulatory system. Likewise, we have different system to function different process, but all these organisms, their level of organization is very simple. So that's why they don't depend on another individual to produce an offspring. So they simply use their body cells. Mostly they use their body cells to produce an young one. And the young one that is produced by all these groups are almost produced or all have uniparental inheritance. What do I mean uniparental? Uni means single, right? From a single parent, they all inherit genetic information. So that is why they look exactly similar to each other. And this uniparental inheritance is also known as non-Mendelian inheritance because it does not follow the Mendel's law. You will be learning about Mendel's law in your future classes, but don't worry about it now. And you don't see any genetic variation from the organism that produce asexually. Now we have seen what are all the groups of organisms that produce offspring through asexual reproduction. So based on this level of organization, this asexual reproduction is also categorized into different levels. Let's see about it. You have fission, sporulation, budding, gemule formation, fragmentation, and regeneration. You have fission, sporulation, budding, gemule formation, fragmentation, and regeneration. Let's see one by one in detail. Let's see what is fission. Fission, it is a division of the parent body into two or more identical daughter individuals. Let me draw an example here. This is the parent bodies, parent cell. So you have nucleus, something, nucleus here, So it produced two individuals, or a single parent cell producing more than two daughter individuals. Let me draw the nucleus inside, genetic material, right? So if you can recollect everything, you will easily be able to identify. In simple fission, it is like this is the parent cell, this is the parent body. It just gets divided into two or three, and it will look exactly like its parent. So this is what we call as fission. Now let me erase this and get back further about this fission. This fission is also of different types. There are four types. For example, binary fission, multiple fission, sporulation, and stridulation. Let's talk about binary fission in this slide. So what happens in binary fission? As I drew earlier, from a single cell you get two daughter individual. I mean, from the single cell divides into two halves, and each halves becomes two daughter individuals. For example, this is a cell, and you have genetic material here, and it just gets copied, and it again it grows, it divides, and finally you get two daughter new individuals which will have same information as its mother. So this can also happen amitotically as well as mitotically. So I have given some example for amitotics. What is amitosis? If, as I told you earlier, amitosis means a single parent cell will simply undergo a nuclear division. As you can see here, this is the nucleus. It just undergoes a nuclear division and divides into two cells. And you will not be able to see the spindle formation as well as the X structure, which is the chromosome structure that you normally see in the mitotic process. Now you know what is amitosis, right? I've just given it for some example so that you will understand what is amitosis. Amitosis, and it also undergoes mitosis. In mitosis, you have two phases. Like it undergoes mitotically, which means karyokinesis and cytokinesis. Let me explain you what is karyokinesis and cytokinesis. This is a simple picture that explains about the mitosis cell division, mitotic cell division. If you look at this mother cell, it has chromosomes, one chromosome. During reproduction, mitotic cell division, the exact copy of its chromosome will get copied, and you can able to see the X structure, which X chromosome structure, which we call them two sister chromatids, right? And they will also be separated during different process. Let me tell you what is karyokinesis and cytokinesis, and where actually this process takes place. I've given an example here. Look at this cell. This is actual cell cycle and cell division. Generally, you must have studied in your lower classes. Generally, a cell during mitosis, a cell undergoes two big phases. One is interphase and mitosis. Here, this interphase is the very longest part of the cell cycle because the duration of this interphase is very long, and you have mitosis again. This mitosis has different phases. Let's see what is interphase briefly. In interphase, you again have three different phases: G1 or growth phase, and G0 phase 2 that I will explain you later, and synthesis phase and G2 phase, and finally it enters into the actual mitosis phase. In this mitosis phase, again you have different phases, which is prophase, metaphase, and anaphase and telophase. Finally, it enters into the cytokinesis. So during this G1 phase, what happens? The cellular component, including the organelles and everything, grows. The cell becomes bigger. And when it enters into the S phase, this is where actually the chromosome gets duplicated. The actual 46 chromosome will get duplicated, and the chromatin structure, this thread-like structure, will become, X chromosome structure, and we call this as two sister chromatids. And this will again, when it enters to G2 phases, again if the cell component and everything grows, it also checks whether all the process have been carried out properly. And when it reaches to G2 phase, it enters into the actual mitosis phase. And if you can recollect, again this mitosis has different phases, which is prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Between this prophase, metaphase, and anaphase, where you have this karyokinesis, which means the two sister chromatids which is being synthesized during S phase will actually get separated into two chromosome inside the cell. I mean, which the two sister chromatids will get separated as two sister chromosome and move towards either side of the cells. During the telophase, as soon as it enters this telophase, the cell nucleus again starts appearing, and after it enters to the cytoplasmic division or cytokinesis. So this is how typically a cell division takes place in all the organisms. Again, this binary fission, based on its plane of division, like how it gets divided, it is again classified as simple, irregular binary fission, transverse binary fission, longitudinal binary fission, oblique binary fission. Why I have given this image is this protist unicellular prokaryotes actually undergoes this amitotic cell division. So I've just given a microscopic picture for your simple understanding. Okay, now we have now we have seen, excuse me, now we have seen what is fission and what are the types of fission and how this binary fission usually takes place, whether it is amitotically or mitotically, and what is amitotic cell division also we have seen how, and we have briefly also saw how mitotic cell division takes place. Again, this based on the division, for example, let me draw it here, based on the division, whether it is like this, across or transverse and simple. Based on the plane of division, this fission is also divided into different group, which is simple irregular binary fission, transverse binary fission, longitudinal binary fission, oblique binary fission. Let's see one by one in detail. So guys, in our previous slide, we saw what is fission and what are all the types of fission, like binary fission and sporulation, stropulation, all this multiple fission, all this we have seen. From that particularly, we saw what is binary fission, right? And based on the plane of division, again this binary fission is of different types. That's what we have seen in our previous slide. Now let's see what is simple or irregular binary fission, which is observed in this amoeba. If you look at this amoeba, see, it does not have a definite shape, right? It is irregular in shape. It is like, if you look at it, if you look at any amoebas, it does not have a definite shape. So they have an irregular shape. Now it is very hard to observe the plane of division. For example, in this picture, it is seen that the cell is getting divided into this direction, but this amoeba can also divide this direction, in this direction, and this direction. So that is why it is very hard to observe the plane of division in amoeba. And excuse me. So now we know what is a plane of division, right? So why this is called as simple or irregular binary fission means, because the amoeba undergoes cell division in any direction, as it does not have any definite shape. During this simple or irregular binary fission, the amoeba cells undergoes mitotic cell division. I told you what is mitotic cell division in my previous slides. So what happens? The contractile vacuoles just cease to function, which means they don't function anymore if this amoeba cell is going to reproduce. So this contractile vacuoles will cease to function, and the nucleus is ready to copy its genetic material. As you can see from this image to this image, the cell has grown little bigger and the nucleus also grown little bigger. And in this image you can see that the contractile vacuole has disappeared already. From here, the genetic material has already been copied and undergone this mitotic cell division. So that is why you can see the chromosomes. And in this, when it progresses further into the cell division, the genetic material, which is the chromosome, once it has been copied, it is ready to disintegrates. So the nuclear envelope, I mean the nuclear membrane, also starts disappearing once this nucleoli, which means nucleoli remains plural form of the nucleolus. So two nucleolus have been disintegrated, which means separated from each direction of the cells and move towards the cells. Again the nuclear envelope and nuclear membrane starts forming, and it undergoes the cytoplasmic division, where the cell gets a cell constrict in the middles and divides into two daughter new individuals. So this is what simple binary fission. This takes place in amoeba because the plane of division is very hard to observe as it does not have a definite shape. Now let's see what is let's see what is uh, transverse binary fission. Okay, as the name suggests, let me draw it. What is transverse? Let's say this is the straight line, and this direction is known as transverse, which means it goes across the line, right? So likewise this paramecium undergoes transverse binary fission, which means through transverse fissions it's going to produce two daughter individuals. So what happens in this process, in this fission? Let me erase this one. The parameciums will have two nucleus. One is micronucleus and macronucleus. What happens? The micronucleus undergoes mitotic cell division. Again, recall what is mitotic cell division. A proper cell mitotic process. A proper genetic information will be copied into two copies. I mean two copies of genetic information will properly be duplicated during this mitosis process, which I mean this micronucleus undergoes this mitotic cell division, and this macronucleus undergoes amitosis, which means it just simply gets divided into two macronucleus. So now let's see one by one. This is that paramecium. You can see the micronucleus here and the macronucleus there, and also whorl grooves here. When the cell is about to undergo this transverse binary fission, it just the genetic information gets copied through different process. The macronucleus undergoes amitosis, which means it simply is ready to divide into two macronucleus, and this mitosis again, I mean this micronucleus undergoes the mitosis, which means the DNA genetic information inside this micronucleus is going to properly get copied. So the cell also grows little bigger, and the whorl grooves which you have seen in the primary, I mean first step, will slowly start disappears. And when the genetic material from the micronucleus and macronucleus gets copied through mitosis and amitosis, the whorl grooves also starts forming from each directions. And once this has been done, and other organelles also starts forming. Once it has been formed, the cell is ready to undergo the transverse, which means across the cell gets divided into two daughter individuals. Now you can see two daughter individual, and it gets divided here. right here. You can see right here it just get divided into two, that into two daughter new individuals that looks exactly like its parent. That is why we call this binary fission as transverse binary fission. Let's see what is micronucleus and macronucleus. This this paramecium also undergoes this sexual reproduction too, which means this paramecium can able to do asexual reproduction, which is transverse binary fission, and sexual reproduction where it undergoes a process known as conjugation. What happens during sexual reproduction? These two new, two paramecium cells. Let's consider these are two paramecium cells that is going to do this conjugation, which means sexual reproduction. When this two about to do this conjugation, it moves towards these two paramecium cells try to unite together. When these two paramecium cells united, the micronucleus inside the paramecium plays a significant role. What happens when these two paramecium paramecium fuse together? The macronucleus inside the cell gets disappears, and the micronucleus, which carries haploid chromosomes, half of the information, will unite together and becomes diploid micronucleus. And this diploid micronucleus again produce two macronucleus, which is responsible for all the metabolic process that takes place inside the paramecium, and it gives rise to macronucleus, and then it also divides into two micronucleus. Once two micronucleus have been divided from the united paramecium, the cell two paramecium is ready to divide into again two daughter new individuals. This is how sexual reproduction as well as asexual reproduction takes place inside the paramecium. Now let's see what is longitudinal binary fission. Let me draw what is longitudinal first. This is the cell, right? Euglena, right? This is what they given. So this direction is known as, let me draw it again. So this is the euglena, right? Consider this as euglena. This direction is known as longitudinal, which means a straight line between the basal granule. I'll tell you what is basal granule later. Let's see here. So this euglena, right? What happens? It has flagella too. Do you know what is flagella? Flagella is used for the locomotion purpose, as well as it helps in the feeding. To get its food also from different organisms. Cilia, flagella, all these have different purposes in single cellular organisms. So what happens here? This euglena, during reproduction, it also undergoes, the nucleus inside the cell undergoes the mitotic cell division, which means the genetic information will get copied properly. Undergoing different process. So you know what is mitotic cell division, so I don't think you want me to repeat it again and again. So what happens here? The euglena will always undergo mitotic cell division, because if it undergoes transverse or this direction, the flagella as well as the structure, you will not get it right. That is why this species always undergoes longitudinal binary fission, which means by longitudinal axis, through longitudinal axis it produced two daughter new individuals. So when the cell is about to divide, undergoes the binary fission, the flagella inside in the basal granule, this part is known as basal granule, will be retained, which means usually during reproduction, you must have seen everything will be duplicated, but here what happens, this flagella will be retained by one daughter individual cell, and another flagella will start growing into on the basal granule, and you get two basal granule, two flagellas, and the basal granules also starts forming two basal granules. Once this has been done, the cell, the euglena is ready to divide longitudinal axis. Let me do it again. See, as you look at here, the DNA material also has the nucleus has been copied properly through mitosis, and it is ready to divide into two dotted new individuals through this axis, and you get two dotted new individual which also has flagella and same nucleus as its mother. Now you're clear what is longitudinal axis, right? Okay, let's go further. So we have seen what is longitudinal binary fission. Now let's see what is oblique binary fission. Oblique binary fission is generally observed in Seracium. There are many other species that also do this oblique binary fission. Let's see, let me draw what is oblique first. So if you look at this, this is a parallel line, right? If you can, I know that you guys know what is parallel line. This line is known as parallel, and this axis is known as oblique or slanting position. Now you can understand what is oblique is, right? So let me erase this. So this division is oblique. So in your book they have given the dinoflagellates do this oblique binary fission. Let me tell you what is dinoflagellates. They are phytoplanktons. You know what is phytoplankton, I guess. It is a primary producers in the aquatic environment, like what we have in the terrestrial environment, which is known as trees. So this phytoplankton are of different types, and this dinoflagellates falls under this Seracium comes under dinoflagellate, which means a different group. And one interesting feature about this dinoflagellate, it is also responsible for many dreadful events, which means like it causes red tide phenomena. There is a different species that cause red tide phenomena, which is very toxic to the aquatic environment. But sometimes you must have seen in news that suddenly a sea has turned into whether the dark green color or red color. So that process is called red tide phenomena. And these groups are responsible, not this species, these groups, the species that falls under this dinoflagellates are responsible for that. Now let's get back to the oblique binary fission. So this Seracium species, right, it actually do this oblique binary fission. Let me tell you how it does. So this is another type of Seracium species. So I told you what is oblique, right? Either this or you can say this slanting. So here you can look this division takes place in this direction, and here also you can see the exact binary oblique fission. This is how it actually divides and produces two dotted new individuals. Now we have seen about binary fission and their types based on their plane of division. Remember what is plane of division? If this is a cell, this is longitudinal, this is transverse, and this is oblique, and what else? That's it, right? So you have different, and